Welcome to TNT, baby, the naked truth with Taylor Armstrong, where I'm going to expose everything about my life, and my guests are going to come on, get naked with me, and bear it all. Now, let's get naked. This is the naked truth. I'm Taylor Armstrong. It's TNT, baby. So I'm here with Gemma, and Gemma, this has been on my mind because of an experience I just had, but I want to know if you think age gap relationships work.
Oh my gosh. I do think that they work. I think that age gap relationships are actually awesome for a lot of different reasons. I'm kind of in one. My husband is 14 years older than me.
My husband's 14 years older than me too.
Oh my gosh, how crazy.
I know. So we're living it.
Yeah, totally. And it's an interesting thing because I always wonder, like, I love that when we first met that, he was like established and, just sweet and really a nice guy. He'd already like learned his lessons, I should say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think because when I got together with John, I was going through so much in my life, and he just felt so much more stable because he was older and had more life experience. And also, growing up without a father, I definitely have some daddy shoes to fill when I've gone out with almost all of my relationships. And it's something I know about myself, but it's something I gravitate toward.
Right.
So there is that whole older man daddy thing without it being weird.
How long have you and John been together?
John and I just went through our 10-year anniversary. We've been together for 12.
Oh yeah, see, okay, so we've been together for 12 years also. So that's so wild. And I do think that I never thought I had daddy issues, but then as I got older and I met Anthony, my husband, I was like, oh, maybe I do have some of those security issues because I've always been attracted to older men in general.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think there's some sense of stability there and a little more trust because they've been around the block. And also, I think a lot of times older guys have already been divorced once. So maybe they learned a little bit the first time around. John was married for a very long time.
Well, it depends what block they've been around.
How many blocks?
How many blocks have you actually been around?
But I did think, like, okay, if he was capable of being a husband for this many years, he kind of knows the program. And I also think married guys that get divorced, that have been in long marriages, want to get married again because they don't know how to be alone.
I agree with that too. I think that like older men also, I think it's because they also value the relationship more because maybe they did learn a lesson or something happened and they know how to treat a woman and they actually look forward to like implementing all the things they learned into a new project.
But I also do like the decision maker and, an older man, because I hate to make some decisions like, where do you want to go eat? What do you want to eat? I'm like, I don't care. Just make a decision because I'm probably going to choose the wrong one.
And I know we were talking about that earlier, like with power, like how everybody says, save your power. You're going to lose the power in the relationship. Or if you don't tell him that you didn't like this or didn't like that, you're giving away your power. But, sometimes, like for me, sometimes I want to give away my power. Like, I don't want to make the decision all the time. I don't want to be the one in control.
Right. And we have so much going on, you and I and everyone else in our lives. And it's like, sometimes it's easy to just be like, somebody else just make the end of the day decisions, please. Because I'm over it.
Right. Like, okay, that's one thing about being married forever. I saw a quote online that was so funny where it said, when you get married, you choose somebody that just to ask, what do you want for dinner for the rest of your life? You're like, yeah, could somebody else decide what we're having for dinner tonight? That would be great.
100%. Yeah, I know. But then some people would say that because we let them make all these decisions, then we are giving up our power and our control. And I'm with you on that. I don't feel powerless because I'm not choosing where to go to dinner. I feel relieved that I don't have to fuck with it,
Right.
It's like one less thing on my plate for the day.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm out with this couple. This is what brought this whole question to my mind. I went out with this couple. I've been friends with him for a really long time. Like, he's like a brother to me.
Right.
And he wants me to meet his new girlfriend. And he and I, and like our group of friends, we love to go listen to live music and go out all the time. And, all my friends like to drink and everything else. So I go to the dinner, kind of excited to meet her. She's 20.
Oh my God.
20 years old.
His girlfriend is 20
His new girlfriend is 20.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm having dinner with someone 2 years older than my daughter, who's now dating one of my best friends.
That's
and I'm like,
so uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable.
I would feel so uncomfortable.
And then I'm thinking, are we allowed to order a drink at dinner? Because she doesn't even have a fake ID. I don't know if she has a fake ID.
You're like,
but
am I going to jail?
How is this possible that one of my friends is dating someone that can't go out and drink with us?
Yeah.
And then is it wrong that I was thinking maybe I could get her a fake ID?
Well, if you want to have a good time.
because I'm losing my friend
Yeah.
because she's not old enough to drink.
And you don't want anyone, calling the authorities that you're giving alcohol to a
Right,
minor.
right. I'm contributing to the delinquency of my
Right.
friend's girlfriend,
Right.
who's my daughter's age.
Yeah, you're like, I think I'm just gonna X out of this situation.
I know, but
Thanks.
I wonder sometimes when new marriages happen with
Yeah.
that big age gap, if you lose some of your friend group.
Right. I think absolutely.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think absolutely. But it might be worth it to a man because he wants to be with like a hot young chick.
Exactly.
Right?
But also, I think in some cases, like if it's an older man who's been married for a super long time and they get divorced,
Right.
they've got the huge friend group breakup, who's
Oh
going
my
to choose which
gosh.
side. And then they get together with someone new. And then the old friend group that was friends with the ex wife is not going to come be with the young chick because they're
Yeah.
going to be pissed because they're all the same 70-year-old age as his wife.
Right. Oh my gosh, this reminds me of the time I think I told you about, like where we're having dinner with friends at Gulfstream, right? And it's like all the wives, we all sit together and we chat and we have a good time. And then one guy, without a doubt, always brings somebody that's like young, very attractive, always wearing a tight dress. And the other wives don't even engage her and I remember the first time I was out that thing, I was like, why does nobody talk to her? She's like, honey, she's not going to be here long. So they know, I think friends know, like there's always one in a group that cycles through the young chicks. But then if she
Absolutely.
sticks around and it's a real relationship and they give it that, then maybe you bring her into the friend group.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see it has longevity and you're like, okay, she's not a gold digger and
Right.
this is maybe going to have some life to it, then I think you probably would bring her in.
I think we should
because
do a whole episode on gold diggers.
I think we should too, because I
Right.
know several.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I didn't live in Beverly Hills and not get to know a few. They
That's
breed
funny.
them there, actually.
That's funny. That's what they do.
I do think too, though, the differences in interest is
Right.
something that I'm trying to figure out how my friend who loves to go listen to like the Eagles and, the Rolling Stones. And now my daughter had a Rolling Stones t-shirt on recently. And I'm like, oh, do you know who that is? And she goes, no. And I'm like, okay, great.
Oh
now
my gosh.
this girl that's going out with my friend who loves the Rolling Stones is dating a girl that might not even know anything about their music. So
Or
I don't know
anything.
what people do in those situations with
Right.
the age difference.
I think you just order another drink and sit
That's
back
what I'm
and
gonna have to
observe.
do.
Sit back and observe.
I do think because John and I both are avid skiers, that
Yes.
when we got together, that became our hobby that we did together. And
Right.
he's a fabulous skier. And so he definitely is a better skier than I. But because of the age difference,
Right.
if he had been much older, that would be deteriorating to the point that if that was our hobby together and now he sort of ages out of it,
Yeah.
then I think that would almost feel like a little bit of an emotional hobby breakup.
Yeah, because it's cutting you off like a decade early from things that you enjoy. So I do think I experienced that a little bit with my husband too, because we love to travel and do things. And even recently, I'm like, "Are you tired?" And he's like, "I can't do these no late nights and no sleep." And I was thinking, okay,
That's why you have me.
I know, babe. I know that's why we got to go out instead.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
We'll let him drive us.
But then one day, what are we doing? Are we pushing a wheelchair at some point,
Well,
or
that's
like,
the other question
how
that
does
I
this
have.
happen?
Because if you're 30 and you marry somebody that's 45,
Right.
then that's one thing because you're still kind of in the same physical shape and everything. And then as the years go on, when you're 60 and they're 75,
Right.
chances are there's going to be some health issues, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and then does that take, a part of your life away because you knew in advance that this was going to happen with this age disparity, but maybe
Right.
you just don't believe it in the beginning.
Yeah, you don't because you're in love and all your chemicals are going off and you're like, it's okay, like it'll be fine. And I think that like obviously childbearing age also, like maybe if you want a child and they don't want a child, the reality of that or the truth of having children at an older age, which nobody talks about, is not easy. Like you're not as tired. I have friends, my very best friend, the mother of my godson, is older and they literally qualified her as a geriatric pregnancy.
What
Okay.
is that?
And she's only 36, but I mean, she's 44, but they start at 36
Wow.
calling it a geriatric pregnancy.
Well, like we don't have enough insecurities in our
I
life. We
know.
don't need that.
It's like horrible. And it's like her, and of course, I love my godson, and so does she. But she's tired. Like, there's no joke. Like, having babies in your 40s or early 50s, even now, some people with IVF, like, it's really a hard job. So, that's like something you have to hash out. I think have those honest conversations about the future when you're in a relationship with an older person and what your goals are, things like that. Because I know that, like, we just got together and it didn't seem like a big age difference, 12 years ago. But now it is kind of starting to get like, maybe you need to work out. He's taking all the supplements, he's doing all the things, but it's still worrisome.
Absolutely. And then
Yeah.
if the younger partner then is going to have enormous guilt about wanting to still live their young-ish life
Right.
while their partner isn't really capable or doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Does that mean that the younger person needs to give up all the things they used to do together?
Right. Or just outweigh its value, I guess, in your individual life, right? Like, so maybe have being married to an older spouse that like fulfills you in all these other ways, that it's worth sacrificing yours when you get older to be with them rather than have like multiple relationships that just fail every 5 to 10 years.
Well, that's true. And
Right.
I do believe that I read that these age gap relationships, they actually last more often
Right.
than you would think, because most people are like, oh, they're definitely going to break up, it's too big of a difference. But it said that there's more trust,
Right.
less jealousy, because they're not on the same playing field, right? So
Right.
it's not like you're hanging out with a whole bunch of 35-year-olds and you're like, you think that your husband's looking at somebody's wife because they
Like they're always
potentially could be
cheating.
together,
Yeah.
right? So there's that. And then I think just too, there's so much more value because you know that you've already been through the majority of your life, and now you appreciate the person you're with more, and the love
Absolutely.
that you're getting from them.
I think absolutely. And I think also surrounding yourself with other friends, like couple friends that are healthy, that when you have bumps in the road or you're like, they're not like, oh, he's older than you should just get divorced. Or she's, whatever, you should just get divorced. I feel like you just have to find ways like to actually talk about those things. Like, hey, I feel like our age gap is starting to like kind of affect things. Like, what can we do to like make it more exciting or keep it exciting? And like try to stay positive instead of like giving into the I should just leave you because you're gonna fall apart. You
Yeah,
know what
right,
I mean?
exactly.
Because you're gonna
I
fall
think
apart.
that, as your
Because
point,
we're all gonna
there's
fall apart at some
right. You're
point.
gonna have to.
Like,
We're
who's
all
gonna
gonna
be the
fall
person that
apart.
wants to leave us
Well,
at
I
some
know. I
point?
mean, the
Yeah.
roles could be reversed. We're using the older male because we're
Yeah,
both
it
married to
could.
older men, but I mean, the roles could definitely be reversed, and
Right.
I think that's interesting too. Because why is it that when an older woman wants to date a younger man, they get a title,
Right.
cougar? I'm like, well,
Right.
what's an
Or
older
sugar
man
mama.
called, right? Or
Yeah.
sugar mama? You're right,
Right. Or
and
she's an old lady with a lot of money that wants a young hot guy.
yeah,
That actually happens
of
in reverse too.
right.
Yeah.
But since it happens so much more frequently in men, or
Yeah.
more that we know about anyway, I
Right.
feel like there's more of a stigma on women that date young men.
Absolutely. I
It's
think
so
you're not
unfair
allowed. I think you're not allowed.
because men are too jealous of younger
Yeah.
men.
And believe it or not, there's some young men that actually want to be with older women.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure there's a Reddit for it
Maybe they
somewhere.
have a mommy issue, like I have a daddy issue.
Maybe, right? It's always classified as some horrible
I-
issue,
we
right?
can always blame our parents for everything,
Right.
right? Mommy issue, daddy issue. I don't know
Forever,
what issues, but
forever.
I do think that looking forward for you and I,
Yeah,
it's like I start doing the math and
yeah,
I start thinking, oh, in 10 years, he's going to be this age, I'm going to be this age. And what are going to be our differences in our interests? And we're always going to have the
right,
commonality of skiing. But
right.
then what if he needs knee replacements and then he can't ski anymore? And then so that part of our life gets cut out.
Do you feel like sometimes it's not just age too? Like it's like mindset, like how you're changed, how you're evolving as a person. Like if your spouse, even besides age, if they're not growing with you, then they're getting left behind.
Right.
And so if you're not growing together, I think that's what leads to most separations at any age is this you're not like experiencing things at the same level and you're not like learning things at the same level. Like you're probably having like all these epiphanies. And I think like women were definitely more into like analyzing ourselves, figuring out who we are,
Oh, absolutely.
where we came from, why we make the choices we make. And so I don't think a lot of men are sitting around doing that mainly. I don't want to say because they're working, because women are working just as much, but I think that women just in general are more introspective than a lot of men, especially in our age group. I think the younger age group, like my kids, they are learning, like male and female are both like learning to ask themselves questions and evolve at a
I
much earlier age than you and I were.
I think so too. I've
Yeah.
noticed that when I do public speaking at universities, they
Right.
ask amazing questions that are so much more introspective. I didn't even have any view of myself like they do now.
No.
And so I agree, the younger generation's
Yeah.
definitely
I mean,
more
my
in
parents
tune.
didn't even believe in therapy. They didn't believe in talking out loud about your feelings. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it was just not that era. So I feel like, so when I say that, I don't mean to be like classifying age groups or whatever, but I think that you definitely have to have good communication with your spouse. I think communication at any age is probably what's going to fix everything,
Right. And
right?
in those conversations, compromise is going to have to happen
Has to happen.
in every relationship. But I
Yeah.
think too, if the younger person in the relationship is, let's say, has been an avid road biker with their partner, and now
Right.
their partner's kind of aged out of wanting to do that, you still have to be like, but babe, I love road biking. And the other
Right.
person should be in the position of, babe, I love you and I want you
Right.
to continue road biking. So it takes that weird tension off when the younger
Exactly.
person wants to go do something they know the older person can't do. So
Right.
the communication, as you said, and compromise.
Right. There can't be like jealousy or anything crazy. Like if you want to go out with your friends and your spouse doesn't feel like going out, it's going to be like, okay, babe, I'll be home before whatever time and I'm going to go have a good time. And they have to be like, okay, babe, have a good time. Because
Exactly.
you love each other enough to want each other to have the most fulfilling life that you can possibly have. So I think like it doesn't have to always be together. Right. So,
Well, and I think that can end up being a little unhealthy at times too,
right.
because I'm going to speak for you, Gemma, just because I know you well. You and your husband spend a ton of time together,
I know.
and
It's
my husband
crazy.
and I spend a ton of time
Yeah.
together. And sometimes I think that this maybe we need to not spend so much time together. I mean, I
Right.
don't know.
And that's not unhealthy.
We're just used to it, but I
Yeah.
agree that I need more separation time
Yeah.
just for me to not always be like, oh, I'm going to eat where he wants to go eat. Like maybe I will make a few more decisions on my own.
Well, right. Plus, I think like all interactions you have in life teach you things. People you meet teach you things, right? So, like, if you're always doing the same thing over and over again, you're not expanding your bubble or like what could happen that day or who you could meet that day or whatever, you know? So, I think like when you're always with your spouse, you're also a different person when you're with your spouse as when they're not with you, right? So, like, I'm always super outgoing, but like when he's with me, like we go to an event or something happens and he comes with me, I'm always like worried about where he is or is he okay? Or like, is he, and that was something we had to adjust to. And he became very independent and started doing his own thing, but it was through communication.
Well, and you have a huge personality,
Mm.
and you're bubbly and
Aw,
younger, and you know so many people, and
I'm not that
your
young.
husband
I
is
know.
definitely like he's quiet and like shy and
Right.
sweet as can be.
Yeah.
But you go to these huge events. We were just at one, and
Mm.
I can just imagine when you guys first started dating. First of all, he's quite a bit
Oh
older,
my
and he's
gosh.
never been in your world with big events and big parties. He must have been so overwhelmed, and you must
Oh
have
my
spent
gosh,
the whole entire
totally.
time worrying about him. I know that feeling
Totally.
exactly with John, and
Right.
I like he when he started hanging out with me when I was still doing a lot of TV, and he was like such a different world for him that I was always worried about him, and I wasn't able to
Right.
focus on my job as much.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's so difficult. It's really difficult when you're like in the back of your head. And then they think you're not worrying about them at all. So
right.
then they're like, "Oh, you're just having fun. You're talking to all the people. You're doing all the things." And I'm just sitting over here and you're like, "Oh my God." In reality, the whole time you're over there just like worried about them, which
100%.
is so crazy, right? So it's interesting. And I think, well, back to the age thing though, it can be super successful. There's lots of like celebrity couples that have been like 20 years apart from each other.
I know,
And I
right?
know, and I'm always like, yeah, that's pretty amazing. And they make it work somehow. And they have crazy schedules and and that's like when you're talking about like celebrity couples, like, who is it? Catherine Zeta Jones and her husband,
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. Like, I always think of them because they seem like a power couple to me. And not that I'm like fully engaged, but from what I see,
Yeah.
I feel like they're a power couple. But, she's like filming or he's doing whatever, and he's much older than her, but she really loves him, because she wasn't like, I have a bigger opportunity or doing whatever, because he's much older now. So I imagine
Well, and they're
that
both
she's
hot,
the energy.
which really helps.
And they're both hot
So unfair.
and rich. Just kidding.
Okay. All right. Well, we need to get to that whole
Oh
conversation
my
the
gosh.
next time because I want to talk to you about this couple and their rich issues.
That sounds good.
Okay.
That sounds
Sounds
good.
good. This is The Naked Truth. I'm Taylor Armstrong.